Well, we're joined now from Washington by John Podesta, the co-chair of President Obama's transition team, and by the Republican Congressman Michael Burgess. Here in the studio is the Secretary of State for Energy and Climate Change, Ed Miliband, Josh Jarman from Greenpeace, and, of course, the ethical man you saw there, Justin Roller. John Podesta, why this poverty of ambition in this proposed legislation?
Well, I don't think of it that way at all. First of all, this bill will cut carbon emissions from the United States economy. It also does a lot of other things. It invests in efficiency. It finances lots of clean energy development. I think it's still a strong bill. Look, I'd like to see it stronger still, but it's a strong bill. It's up for a vote on Friday, and I think that if you believe in the project of reducing CO2 emissions in this country, then if you're a member of Congress, you'll vote to pass this bill.
Ed Miliband, why are Europeans able to be so much more ambitious in this field than the Americans?
I think America has started later. It had 8 years of President Bush after all.
Well, therefore it's got more ground to catch up.
I think John Podesta is right. I think President Obama has changed the debate, but I think there's a lot further to go. And look,
this bill is a fraction of what he talked about in the campaign.
No, I think this bill is actually what he talked about in the campaign.
No, it isn't.
It is what he talked about.
Well, he talked about 100... Well, you can remind us what he said in the campaign, Justin.
Well, the cap was going to be much higher, wasn't it? They were going to reduce emissions more. There was going to be a 100% auction. He actually said polluters are going to have to pay for every bit of pollution, carbon dioxide, that they emit. And there was also going to be no ceiling on it. At the moment, there's a ceiling, a $28 ceiling. Carbon price can't go any higher than that.
I think the level of ambition is about the same as he said in the campaign. But look,
it isn't what he said in the campaign.
Let me just say this. I think that we need to be more ambitious. The whole world needs to be more ambitious. In Britain, we've said we'll cut our emissions by 34% by 2020. I want us to go further by the time we get to December. All of us need to raise our ambition. I think that's right. And that is the test for the world in the coming 6 months as we lead up to Copenhagen.
Joss, are you disappointed by this, or pleased, or as well as could have been expected, I guess?
Well, no, I mean, President Obama said that he was going to govern according to the science, not according to politics, and he set up this scientific dream team. He said, I'm going to go into Washington, I'm going to take on big carbon special interests, and I'm going to change the way that we do business in this country. And actually, what's happened on the first opportunity that he's had and the issue that's going to come to define our generation, he's been walked all over by the coal industry. I mean, what this bill will deliver is a 4% cut on 1990 level emissions, and what the scientists at the UN say we need is a 40% cut. And as you see, Europe's already committed to a 20% cut.
You see how the environmentalists are going to look at this, John Podesta?
No, I think that many of the major environmental groups in the United States, Greenpeace aside, support this bill because it makes real reductions. They're locked in. They go to 2050 to 80% reductions by 2050, and they take the kinds of necessary actions we need to
finance very long way off
2050,
isn't it?
To invest in the ability to create housing that's more efficient, an energy system that's more efficient.
I mean,
and I think that the leading environmentalists in Congress support this bill.
Let me just bring in
the director of NASA, the world's preeminent climate scientist, James Hansen, was actually arrested yesterday taking direct action against coal stations in this country. Now, President Obama said that he was going to govern according to the science. What does this say about the Obama administration's commitments to governing by the science when the director of NASA is getting arrested taking direct action?
Well, you know, the president has already made major investments in his recovery bill towards clean energy, over nearly $100 billion in clean energy. He's produced a breakthrough with respect to emissions from automobiles, from tailpipe emissions, etc. He's already ordered efficiency in the appliance sector, and he's supporting strong legislation. I think, totally changed the game from where Bush was, who did nothing for 8 years.
Ed Miliband, how does it look? You're just back from Mexico, an international conference on climate change, trying to persuade the Chinese or the Indians to make serious cuts. How is that helped by the modesty of these ambitions in this bill?
So I'm not here to defend President Obama, but I also think I'm also here to attack defeatism, Jeremy. Let me just finish this point, because if you look at American emissions now, President Obama is saying he's going to cut them by about 17% from where we are now by 2020.
And we're cutting by 34% on a much earlier base.
And I want him to go, and I want him to go, and I want him to go further, and I want us to push the United States as much as we can, and other countries. But it's also about other countries in this debate. And I don't think people watching this program should go away with the idea that nothing's changed, because President Bush was saying emissions are going to carry on rising to 2025. Yes, we need more American ambition. We need more ambition from all countries of the world. But there is a chance, I think, of getting an ambitious global deal, because I think China wants it, and I actually think America wants it as well.
So let me just bring in the congressman here, because you've been sitting rather patiently there, listening to a lot of stuff I guess you don't like hearing. The fact is there has been change.
No, I'm pleased to hear the amount of discord there. So it's actually a good thing. I probably fall in the camp. I think you interviewed Mr. Pickens in the lead-in piece. For me, it's not so much about climate change as it is we don't need to be in favor of wasting energy. Certainly there are security interests that are at stake in our country. And let's be honest, who has done more as far as developing renewable energy in the state of Texas, that is wind energy, than Governor George W. Bush when he was governor of our state from 96 to 2000. We are the United States leader in the production of wind energy. And that didn't just happen overnight. That was a conscious policy that was put in place by Governor Bush.
Mr. Podesta, what happened on the campaign trail? President Obama, or President would-be Obama, said he wanted to auction 100% of permits to pollute. That's now gone to 15%. What's happened?
Well, you know, that's the congressional process. That's what happened. But I think that you don't confuse auctioning the permits with the real reductions that will be produced by this bill. The World Resources Institute estimated that if you look at the combination of the policies on efficiency and the other provisions that are in this bill combined with the cap, will reduce emissions by 17% from 1990 levels by 2020. Now, that's not quite as good as the UK or Europe in general, but given where we're starting from, that's a very substantial reduction. The president promised 80% reductions by 2050, and he's going to put us on a track to do it with the help of Congress by passing this legislation.
Justin, hang on a second, Congressman, please. When you were in the States, there was a man you interviewed who was going to build, who wanted to build a carbon capture and storage facility, but he needed the price.
Down in Texas, to get additional money in order to fund this expensive project, because stripping the carbon out of the flue gases of a power station is expensive, pumping it underground.
Sure.
He said he
specifically ruled out in this legislation.
He said he needed a carbon price of $50 a tonne of carbon. The bill actually sets a limit, a ceiling on how high the price can go of $28, at which point the government starts issuing more permits and presumably breaks its cap, starts emitting more carbon.
So what do you make of an arrangement like that, Ed Miliband?
Well, look, I don't want to get into the detail of the American legislation. Let me just say this, though. How do we change the politics of this? This is the interesting question. How do we change the politics in the next 6 months? And I think part of what the green organisations and others need to do is to have much more of a global mobilisation around these issues, a global campaign. I think what worries me most in this debate around climate change is that there isn't more consciousness about the fact that we've got this make-or-break deadline of December. And that we need to do more to make this a genuine public debate.
I mean, with respect, there are places in America, as Justin showed, that are taking leadership. I mean, Kansas, for example, this is a state that has, in the past, banned the teaching of evolution in schools, but they've ruled out coal plants on climate change grounds. You're considering building the dirtiest power station in Britain for 3 decades at Kingsmill.
Well,
okay,
we bring forward the toughest environmental
present.
regulations on coal of any country in the world, Joss, and you know that. But look, I make this genuine point, Jeremy. How do you change the politics? You change the politics with more of a campaign,
little by little,
more of a mobilisation in this country, in America, than we have at the moment, frankly.
The point surely is that this is if all the scientific predictions are correct, this is a matter of pressing urgency.
Absolutely right.
It is not something that can be done just by a little bit here and a little bit there, and you get something.
This is not a little bit here and a little bit there. This is a sea change in American policy. And I think the congressman would actually agree with me, although he opposes the bill.
All right,
it's a sea change in American policy that would bring in not only tremendous innovation on the clean energy sector, but create jobs and create a future for our country that's built around clean, renewable energy.
Congressman, do you agree? Just a second, Mr. Podesta. Let's see if the congressman does agree with you. You do agree it's a sea change in American politics?
Well, I think it's a change, but I don't know that it's a change that a change that we hoped for. Look, right after we passed that bill late one night, the chairman of our committee, Henry Wagner,